This is Andrew Hada from Nothing Ventured Media. I want to tell you about all the feature films we've made and how you can see them right now. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one's a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. The documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, A Family of Fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Finally, The Empty Space, winner of multiple awards, including the Sacramento Horror Film Festival's Best of the Fest, is a cosmic horror about Amy Andrews, who's dealing with anxiety and depression after a violent attack that killed her husband. As she tries to find herself, she starts to lose her grasp on reality. Or could it be something much more sinister? The Empty Space is full of twists and turns, with Grace DeWilder of Rue Morgue magazine calling it a powerful film full of excellent performances by practically every cast member. All of Andrew Hada's movies are available to rent or buy on streaming services such as Tubi, Amazon, and many other places. And if that's not enough for you, Hada Films is home to all of our short films. So take a look around and see what you like. Spend your day with Hada Films and Nothing Ventured Media. Now, let's start the bomb squad. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Bomb Squad. I have a Frankenstein shirt, but we're not covering Frankenstein, or are we? You'll find out. My name's Andrew Han, the writer-director of such films as I don't have my posters. I don't have my props today, so you'll have
Oh
to
yeah.
go.
Oh, you're in a different
He
room.
directed Jaws and
Oh my
Fight Club.
gosh.
Yeah, I directed those two.
Yeah.
Don't look on IMDb; it's okay. Just accept.
Right.
Um, and then I am here with my co-hosts William Murdoch and Joshua Whitney App. His social
What up?
security number is help us out, Josh.
Just the last four is all I need. That's fine.
If you like our banter, give us a like and a subscribe. If you like our true podcast, our true crime podcast, you don't because you
Yeah.
But yes,
The only
okay.
true crime is being up at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. Just
I
kidding.
know, right?
Not a big deal.
So today, before we get into the movie, we're going to talk about. I do want to say one thing. We were going to have Inherent Vice this week, but we pushed it to next week because a few days ago, Gene Hackman died. So I just want to say, if you don't know who Gene Hackman is, he's one of our best directors of all time. I think, like, if you haven't seen anything by Gene Hackman, my favorites are like The Birdcage, Royal Tenenbaums. What's another Gene Hackman? Oh, Mississippi
The Unforgiven.
Even
Unforgiven. I
French
literally
Connection.
watched it. Yeah, French Connection. But even like Hosers is a pretty cool movie because of Gene Hackman. Like he does a good job.
Oddly inspiring, yeah. Old school sports movie. Weird vibe, but good.
Although Family Guy ruined it because they made that joke where they're like, "Oh no, it was American Dad," where they said, "Oh, this is what I like my basketball movies to have no black people in it," and now I can't stop thinking about that joke.
Oh wow.
But yeah,
What was the one where he plays like a criminal and it's like a David Mamet movie? Is it called Heist?
Oh, is that the gold one?
Yeah. That's a
and
good
then
one.
the one that I saw was obscure, but I liked a lot was Night Moves. It was on Max, but that's a cool.
Oh, I've never seen that, but I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, don't watch Night Moves if you're not ready to be. Just watch the most depressing '70s thriller. I like how thrillers in the '70s were like, "How's he gonna get out of this one? He's not. He's dead."
Yeah, yeah.
You know what?
The world is
Another
bleak.
like a super off kilter role for him. That movie where the mother and daughter con artist team, and he's like the rich old man, but he's basically playing like a cartoon character. You know what I'm talking about?
What is this? What is?
Is that Heartbreakers?
It might be
With
Heartbreakers. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Jennifer Love
Oh,
Hewitt
Jennifer Love Hewitt. Yeah, I remember
at
that
her
movie.
most attractive.
yeah,
And
I
he's
saw that
this
movie
like
multiple times
lecherous
Sigourney
old
because
Weaver.
man.
I saw that movie a bunch of times because of how much I love Gene Hackman. I saw
Oh,
that movie as a
really?
kid a whole bunch of
Yeah,
times. That's
he
how
is
big of a
so
Gene Hackman fan
ridiculous
I am.
in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was also from New Mexico. William is from New Mexico. I came to New Mexico to uh, colonize it.
I mean,
Also, fun fact:
I mean, you're like
we
20
did.
minutes away from New Mexico for sure.
I know.
You're
We,
grandfathered in distance
yeah,
wise.
we're already here. Get that through your heads,
Come on.
American. Um,
Josh
one
also
thing.
from El Paso.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah. I
Close
guess
by.
that's
Close by.
kinda.
Honorary New Mexican.
and me and Josh did reach out to Gene Hackman for Borderlands. He politely declined our
Yeah,
measly
I've heard
offer.
he's terrifying or
Understandable.
was. Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, we didn't even really have a role for him at the time because he would only do stuff from his house. But I would have figured it out.
Sure.
Um,
Just film at his
but yeah,
house.
Gene. I mean, it was that thing where you just wanted to work with him, and finding out he was in Santa Fe, it was like,
Yeah,
might
to
as well
shoot
take
your
the
shot.
shot. Yeah.
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 So yes, rest in peace to Gene Hackman, and his wife also passed. She was a violinist, and I feel bad
Yeah.
because I didn't see her name, but she also passed. So yeah, sad day. But we hope you guys go check out some of his films. There's probably a picture of them right here.
Yeah.
Let's check one out. I
We'll
would
get that list. Yeah.
if you're gonna start with anything, I would start with either French Connection or Unforgiven, and then go
Yeah,
from
those are good. Yeah.
but yeah, go check it out. French Connection is another movie where they're like, yeah, I mean, this is how life is. Good luck, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those
Wasn't that
super
a cool
70s
art thing?
endings. Yeah.
It's New
Just
York
like, oh,
70s.
it's
It's
over.
bad. Your
Yeah.
life's
This was
bad.
for nothing.
Yeah.
Clean
Yeah.
up these streets.
But today we're gonna go a completely other way with a different acting legend because we're covering the 1996 film The Island of Dr. Moreau, starring
Moreau.
Moreau, starring written by H.G. Wells. And also, so this movie was kind of directed by Richard Stanley. He got fired within a few
Right.
days. We'll talk about it.
What do
It
we
was
know about him? What do we know about Richard Stanley? He's like kind of a figure, right? Like
he's like
he
kind
always
of
tries
a
to get movies off the
weird-
ground. He's like kind of like a
yeah,
niche guy.
and he's like, well, let me get through the credits before.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's a trivia section, William. I assume
Right,
you've been
right.
to-
I don't even have any trivia for you. Just
John
questions.
Frankenhelmer took over. He directed he was a more classic film. It stars Marlon Brando, stars Val Kilmer. We'll talk about him if I can get to the trivia section. It stars Fulza Blanc, and
It's not even close.
Yeah, I think it's
Neither.
Frankenheimer.
Perusa
Huh?
Bulk.
Rusta Polk, and then of course Ron Perlman, and then also David Thewlis is in it.
I know that's wrong, but I don't
Supposed to be
know
the
exactly
lead.
how to pronounce it. He is the lead, David Thewlis.
But yeah, so before we get into what the movie's about, although it is based on Island of Dr. Monroe, the H.G. Wells film, yes, let's talk about the trivia because there's a lot. So Richard Stanley, as William was saying, like he's famous for making like these really hardcore horror films. Like he did Hardware, he did Dust Devil, which are like it's like a weird mix between like extreme horror and also like art house, like kind of
Right.
90s grunge, you know. So they all like they do the thing where the camera's always moving fast and like it's all dirty. It's supposed to take place in the future, but you never see like bigger than like a 10-foot radius because they didn't have the money to do that.
Right.
And so he had been working on the island of Dr. Monroe for about 6 years. His idea was originally like that Monroe he was on the island, but he was more like a godlike figure. He was more Jesus-y, and he was trying to create the ultimate person, and he just kept messing up. He was kind of looked at as like a new age guy. And so the first thing that happened, like they had Marlon Brando, they had Bruce Willis was the lead, and then James Woods was going to be the Monroe, which was the Val Kilmer character. And then
it's definitely not. His name is way different, but you know, Montgomery. What? You were close. Montgomery. Yeah.
And so then they like because of problems, like Bruce Willis dropped out because he was like getting too weird, and then they really wanted Val Kilmer. So they hired Val Kilmer, but then this was right after Batman Forever. So Val Kilmer just decided out of the
Totally.
blue that he didn't want to work for 40%. He said, like, you either cut down my role by 40% or I don't do this movie. And New Line Cinema was like, hey, man, you guys got to make, if Val Kilmer drops, the movie's done. And
Right.
so
Right.
they turned Val Kilmer into like the side character. And then obviously they had to find someone else. So they got the main character, Rob Morrow from Northern Exposure for some reason. And then he dropped out within 2 days. And then right after he dropped out, they fired Richard Stanley. Then Ulsa Bulk like was so mad that she drove like to the nearest city, but then they kind of threatened her career, so she had to drive back.
Oh my
Jesus.
God, dude.
I knew it was
Instead,
bad, but
Right. I mean, you can
there
tell.
was, according to rumors, that then Richard Stanley like never left. They just dressed him up as one of the monsters, and so he was an extra the whole time. But I don't know about
What?
that.
What?
Ridiculous. But yeah,
That's
I
like
can
humiliating.
imagine.
I knew it was bad. When you watch this, because it's right now it's on I think like Prime or
Prime,
whatever,
yeah, Prime and
and
Tubi. I think.
they'll have general trivia in the corner, and the top trivia for this movie is David Thewlis signed on for the prospect of working with Marlon Brando, a free trip to Australia, and a hefty salary. He came to regret his participation.
Yeah.
They like the aftermath was like David Thewlis he didn't show up to the premiere. He didn't do any marketing for this.
Dude.
He's never talked about it. He said if he ever did, he'd probably like get blacklisted because of how much he
Right.
did.
Right.
Famously, Marlon Brando told Val Kilmer that he's confusing his paycheck with his talent. Everyone hated. Apparently, the day that Val Kilmer like rapped, John, the director, was like, "Cut now, get Kilmer the hell out of here," and they
Yeah.
escorted him off of the set and drove him straight to the airport from set.
That's
So there
insane.
was quite a bit. But then I will say,
yeah.
Val Kilmer, like he said later, he's like, how, because John blamed him for the entire thing for ruining the movie essentially, and Val Kilmer said, "Well, I die halfway through, so why is the second half as bad as the first half?"
Who did he say this to?
He said that to a Rolling Stone during an interview because they asked
Nice.
him like,
Very cool.
Do you take credit
Just
for ruining
spoil the whole film?
Which is funny because I would say Val Kilmer's the only one striking like the right tone for this movie, which we can kind of get into when we get to the plot. You know,
Yeah.
Apparently we're all just jumping ahead to different. Last piece of trivia is that at one point, Olza Blanc went to Marlon Brando and wanted to rehearse her role. And Marlon Brando was like, "Listen, you're beautiful. I haven't read the script. You should stop reading the script. Let's just go for it." And you can feel it in every
You can
scene
totally feel it, yeah.
Yeah. But now that we're done and we can finally discuss the movie as these guys clearly are itching to do, Josh, why don't you tell us why don't you take us on a trip to the island
Please.
of Dr. Monroe?
A cruise, a one-way trip.
I'll take you to the island of Dr. Moreau, but
Please.
you know, it's close. So David Thewlis is a guy who gets stranded. He's on a life raft. He finds this island. He's rescued, and then Val Kilmer is like, "Hey, you're fine here. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just stay in these like 2 rooms.
Yeah.
And you won't have a bad time.
Right. It's for your own good."
And instantly he's like, "Oh no, it's an island of animal people, and this is like insane." And then the movie is about him being like, "What's up with this horrible island full of animal people, man beasts?"
Right.
Some might call them.
That's what I would call them.
And the answer is just a bunch of nonsense, kind of.
It's incomprehensible as the people themselves. Absolutely.
Yeah. It is because we started by talking about the troubled production, and you kind of wonder like, because there are like obviously Apocalypse Now, famously troubled, famously amazing film,
Hmm.
or even like something like Blade Runner, which like the entire crew hated Ridley Scott by the end, but like look at what comes out of it.
Right.
And you do wonder, like, did they just hope, like, this will all come together?
This
Like,
is
this
some
will
kind
be
of masterpiece.
something.
Yeah.
Or did they know? They're like, no, this is...
I mean, changing that
Well,
seems
I
like you can't change director like 2 days before. Like that seems
Yeah,
so
no,
crazy.
it was
It was 3 days
3 days
into
in.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Josh, I don't know if you heard anything I just said for the last 10 minutes, but they very much did know, and they were all actively trying to get off. Like,
right, but they also kind of did that on like Blade Runner, you know.
Sure.
Marlon Brando wasn't reading the
Yeah.
script. That's going to be a pretty big hint as to
Right.
what he thought.
Right.
He didn't even know he made up his own lines on Apocalypse Now, and it still worked out. Granted, that was more despite him instead of because of him. So,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm sure that the guy who made The Godfather and the guy who made Hardware were in the exact same boat. As
Right. Right. They have the same kind of
Well,
ideas.
I've seen Megalopolis, so maybe they
Oh,
are. Maybe
interesting.
they are in the same boat.
Yeah, another great movie. Yeah, I don't know. What did you guys think, William? What did you think of this film?
Man, this was the wildest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. Like, it was like so incomprehensible that like I woke up this morning and I was like, I watched that kind of late last night. Maybe I forgot everything that happened because I'm not stringing it together. And I read through the plot synopsis on Wikipedia and I was like, no, I got it. It just makes no sense at all. Just like this movie was crazy. Like not even like offensive or like aged poorly. Like it feels like a really bad episode of Star Trek that just lasted for like an hour and a half, but without any charm.
Yeah.
But I will say
Yeah,
David
it is
Thewlis
that-
is giving his all. And like he's like trying to be a
Oh.
good actor and like work with what he has.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's just like somehow this movie is so crazy, but there's just no tension at all. Like it
See,
feels
I
like
think
nothing bad
that-
is gonna happen ever, even though crazy stuff is happening constantly.
I think that we're going to disagree because I think David Thewlis ruins this film.
Really?
Do you think it was him?
Yeah. I think he's
Not
the worst
everyone
part of
else?
this movie.
I do think he's
Every-
miscast.
I mean, for sure.
Because here's the thing. I'm going to disagree with Val Kilmer as well. I think the first half of this movie, I wouldn't say good, but it's got a lot going for it. It's very interesting.
Okay.
And then there's a clear moment where someone gets eaten alive, and after that the movie kind of falls apart. We'll get to it, don't worry. But I do think like the first part, okay, well, not the very first thing I will say is that there's an opening title sequence and it's just of eyeballs and
Yeah.
it's like going real fast.
It's like
It's
kind of
so
seven,
long.
like kind of like the Seven intro with that
It's
crazy
3
font.
minutes long. And also it doesn't prepare you at all. Like the
No.
7 one, it's like after you watch, you're like, oh, he's making the journal. you
Right.
know?
This is gonna be creepy.
In this one,
Scary.
it's like, why were we watching those eyes? Like, what the hell's happening? Like,
Yeah.
what are you-
Right.
what are you
It's,
doing?
you know,
Yeah.
thematically, but I
And,
don't know.
like-
It's, yeah.
Over the course of the film, you find out that like the eyes are one of the first things that starts to regress when they turn into monsters. But it's such a non-issue that it's
Yeah.
like, why did you focus on this at all?
Right.
But yes. So like, yeah, it starts off with that guy. He's like drifting in the ocean, and then Val Kilmer is there. But like, I think that's, to me, the coolest thing about it is like Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando. And we don't even meet Marlon Brando for a while.
Yeah.
But Val Kilmer, the way he's playing the role is so weird. It's kind of like a junkie sergeant. Like,
I mean,
Yeah,
he's cool. Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like he's in Apocalypse Now
It
as like
is.
one
Like a
of
Dennis
the,
Hopper
and I
guy
almost
from
feel like
Apocalypse Now.
if everyone was like in that mode, it would have been like a better experience. But everyone is kind of acting at odds to one another.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, honestly, from that first scene, that
That's
first fight scene on the boat, I was like, just like the way they were like blocking it and like cutting it together, I was like, this is gonna be a mess. This sucks already. Like this
Yeah.
is already awful.
yes.
Like,
And then like, yeah, because I would say that him and Marlon Brando are kind of like tapping into this, like, oh, they've kind of gone crazy on this island, and
Mhm.
any good intentions they have is blinded by like what they think, like them just becoming pseudo gods on this island. But we spend so much time having to explain this to the David Thales character that it's like, no, just show us what's going on.
right. Like let
don't
him
take us out
explore.
and have a talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like, yeah, it is a very, and then, okay, so here's the thing. Val Kilmer, like, he gets them in the
Mhm.
house. He's like, don't worry, we're going to get you home tomorrow.
He seems cool. He
Don't
seems
leave
like a
this
nice guy.
area. Yeah. And we're going to, like, Dr. the doctor's gonna be in, like we'll figure it
Yeah.
out. And so then he leaves and he goes in, like he's like hears like baby crying, and so he goes into this room and he sees one of the human animal hybrids being born.
Yeah.
And then like all the doctors turn around, and you can, if you pay attention, you can realize that they have animal eyes
Yeah.
and they're monsters. But like, okay, this is the first time we're ever seeing these creatures. Like, think of the first time you saw Jurassic Park, and what, like the build up to that anticipation. You know, they're like looking at the plants,
hmm
they see the thing,
They
you
hear the
see their
noise.
reaction,
Yeah.
they hear the noise, and then you see the monster. In this one, they kind of do all that from the guy's perspective, but the reveal, it just kind of looks like a baby. You know, like it
Right.
doesn't.
It's like,
Like,
well,
it's
it's
hard
like a
to.
pregnant horsewoman.
Yeah.
It is gross.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
but birth is gross in
Sure.
general, so it's almost
You know.
like, you know,
That's what I'm saying. Like, because the
Yeah.
baby's kind of covered in blood, but like a baby's gonna be
Always
covered in blood when it gets born.
And also,
Yeah,
like,
so
whenever, right before
it
that
doesn't.
happens too, like, the way he gets to that place is like, Val Kilmer locks him in his room. He's like, "You stay here," and like, he locks it. And you're like,
Oh
"Oh
yeah,
yeah, this is creepy." And then he breaks out by like pushing a door open. Oh, he pushes a key out of the keyhole, and it's like dangerous escape, man. And like it's like that, like exactly what you're
yeah,
saying. Like the lead up to the monsters in Jurassic Park, it's great, even though it's not scary. It's like
hmm
amazing.
yeah,
But this one, it's like he escapes easily. He's not that stressed out about being locked into his room. He walks into a hospital room and sees a baby being born. Like, it's just like, where's
yeah,
this tension? Like, this is the craziest place to be. And
yeah.
like, I never feel scared at all.
And I think that's the biggest thing with this movie is, and we'll probably mention it a million times, but this movie is billed as a horror film, but it is never scary.
Right.
Like, the characters almost never react in a fearful way until it's like almost too late, which makes
It,
it like you're not
yeah.
really worried about
Yeah.
them because you're like, oh. Also, they're all drug addicted psychopaths. So it's
Right. That's why it felt like a Star
Yeah,
Trek
it
episode. It
doesn't.
just felt like you were exploring this like island.
It doesn't.
Like, okay.
yeah,
And that is like spot on because it really is like the original series, like TOS. Like Kirk's on a planet, a guy turns around, he has a monkey face. There's a music
Yeah.
sting, and then you move on.
Right.
The
Yeah.
whole movie is like that's like as much tension as you're gonna get. Like, oh, that's
Yeah, I used to not
strange,
be allowed to watch this
and then
movie.
it's like.
My
Oh,
mom
really?
wouldn't let us get it because she thought it was scary. Like, she didn't see it and think it was scary. She just like was like, that sounds messed up. We're not watching that.
It does. It sounds more messed up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
well, and like they kind of act sometimes like they're more messed up than it is, and so then they're like, okay, so he runs away, and then the next day he meets Monroe, and I just want to like, it's kind of funny because the reveal of the monsters is not as good as the reveal of the doctor because he's coming in.
He looks
Crazy.
so
and
crazy.
Yeah.
he's like wrapped in white, and Marlon Brando apparently wanted him to look like the Pope. And
He does. That's
He's wrapped in white,
spot on.
but he's also covered in sunscreen, like, but he hasn't rubbed it into his face, so it's just all white.
Yeah.
His whole body's like that, and he's clearly like looks insane.
Yeah, I thought he was supposed to be an albino
Yeah, or
at
something,
first
yeah.
because
Yeah.
in that other H.G. Wells novel, The Time Machine, they're like evil albinos,
Oh,
and I was like,
right,
oh, it's
right.
like a
Yeah,
thing,
yeah, yeah.
but no, he just didn't do sunscreen.
He's got a skin
correctly.
thing.
And that's where we find out that he has like a little button because he's implanted a
Mhm.
chip in all the animals, the human animals, and it shocks them whenever he needs to like put them under control. And so that's how you know that. And then he's kind of like talking, and he's saying that, okay, I'm gonna get into his reasoning. The reason that he's doing this is because there's global warming, which is real. But there's global warming, and he thinks that we're eventually not going to be able to withstand the sun's rays, which is also why he's wrapped in sunscreen all the time. And so he's created these animals in the hopes that fur will protect them in a way that our skin cannot.
Sure.
Now, does he ever talk about how it would also be like 10 degrees hotter and it probably would not be beneficial to have fur?
Yeah.
No, he does not.
Turning us all into huskies.
They also is also like this is I think just even if this movie wasn't a horrible mess like structurally and like production wise, just the whole like hey, because it's not just like, oh, I'm making these animals. He's making them like follow these pretty arcane rules and like this like kind of like rudimentary like court system.
Yeah.
And it's like yeah, obviously this is gonna go badly immediately. So when it does, you're like, yeah, that's that's like
Yeah.
how it would happen, you know.
And might I also add, when they are when he's telling the guys about his plan, he is next to his assistant, which is in real life the smallest person to ever
Yeah.
lived. He's about 17 inches
Right.
tall.
A real
And that
person, right?
person
Yeah.
he's a real person, and he has a sponge, and he's watering off, or he's wiping off the sunscreen
Yeah.
off of Marlon
With
Brando's
his little
head
hand.
while he's explaining that the sun is back. And also back to trivia real fast.
Oh,
So
that mini me, right?
Right.
well,
Yeah.
but Marlon Brando like went out the first day um, that he was going to, like, when he started filming. He went out one day, he met that person and brought him back to set, and then said, "Oh, I want this person to be in every single scene I'm in." And they were like, "Well, you can't, because like you already have an assistant in the film," and so that assistant was fired. And they brought this little
Yeah.
kid, and also that person doesn't have like any
Right,
lines.
right.
It's a very, but they give him a tail at one point.
Dude,
So he's
Yeah.
supposed to be
I
another
felt so
hybrid.
bad for that person.
No,
And,
that-
like, there's like a scene where David
I
Thewlis is like
know.
shaking his hand,
When
and
he
he's like,
first meets
"Don't be
him,
afraid
yeah.
of him, even though he looks scary." It's like, that's a real person, dude. Like,
I know.
that's a
Well, that
living person.
yeah, and that
Very offensive.
that's
Yeah.
it's just funny because that was literally like the Dr. Evil mini me and
Right,
Austin
yeah,
Powers
right.
2 was. That means that Austin Powers 2 is this movie's biggest cultural, like,
Well,
Yeah.
you know.
funny because like this movie was a huge bomb, of course,
Right.
and it was critically panned. Like this is perfect for our podcast, but it had a big cultural impact. I mean, the whole fact of Mini Me,
Yeah.
that's like it became a part of pop culture, and then Marlon Brando's outfit was like hugely like there wasn't memes back in the day, but if there was,
Right.
was
Oh yeah,
like-
it was like that in South Park.
Yeah.
Like that, there was like a scientist
there
just
was a
based
South
on
Park
his
read that.
character.
who also had a Mini Me.
I don't remember those episodes,
Yeah.
but that makes a lot of sense that they would do it too.
This was very early
Yeah.
South Park. Yeah.
It was back when South Park wasn't just openly admitting what they were making.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some
Yeah.
A
weirdness.
little bit more subtle.
You know what I thought was funny too, because you do expect that what this movie will at least like have like a bit of, because obviously like Marlon Brando,
Nighttime
like
shots?
Yeah.
no, not that, but like you think there'd be some sort of like philosophical debate between him and like David Thewlis,
Right.
But all he says when David Thewlis is like, "Hey, this is like a horrible island full of like nightmare
Yeah.
creatures," Marlon Brando's like, "Judge not, lest ye
Yeah,
be
it's all
judged."
good, dude.
It's like, that's it. That's your argument, dude.
What are you gonna do about it?
So it's like oh, even the like dialogue, no one gives
Right,
a shit,
right.
you know,
Well,
no
and
one cares.
Such a
I
casual
will say that
horror.
Richard Stanley's idea was supposed to be more psychological.
So, what did you just
But
say?
then
What
again,
was
it's
that
also
last thing you
like-
just said?
Oh, Richard Stanley's original idea was supposed to be more psychological.
Okay.
It wasn't going to be as in your face. But also, so then Val Kilmer, Marlon Brando also has a bunch of kids. Like the cat
Mhm.
lady is one of his daughters, and then he has like 4 other kids, but she's the only one who kind of looks human.
Yeah.
But she's slowly regressing. The other thing is like, okay, we saw the hybrid be born, but then sometimes it's also implied that he made the hybrids.
They don't really go into
But
it.
why are they?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I
think,
don't
like,
quite understand that either.
But then
it's very
Yeah.
I thought they weren't his real children. They were animals. He's just because he's making all the animals become more human, or is he making his human children more
That I couldn't
animal?
tell. I
See,
couldn't
that's what
tell.
they never
Yeah,
explained.
I was confused
Yeah.
because there's also a village
Because
of people
he-
too somewhere. There's like a village, and then there's the
Yeah.
compound, and they're separate entities. Is that correct?
Yeah,
'cause
the
village because that's the Ron Perlman.
Right.
village.
Ron
He's-
Perlman is good in this. I mean,
We're
he's,
like-
he's
we're-
doing his
Is that
best.
jumping ahead? I'm not
Yeah.
sure where we're at in the plot. Okay.
No, I think
Yeah.
we're
No,
not there.
this movie jumps around.
Because
Yeah.
she tells him she's like, because he wants to escape,
Yeah.
and so the cat lady like, well, let me show you, and she tries to get him to a boat, but like there's like monsters on it, so he like leaves, and that's when he meets Ron Perlman,
Right.
who's like, we're here for peace, but also Marlon Brando.
Is he even chasing him? Like
Um,
whenever he's trying to escape, she's like, "Come with me in the forest," and it seems like they're about to run after him with
Yeah.
like spears or something, and then like they just make it to this village.
Nobody
Yeah, no one,
ever-
it's like
Yeah.
they're being so hardcore for no reason.
There's multiple times where the characters are like, we got to get out of here, and then they just walk
Yeah.
to the next area.
It's like, done.
nobody
We did it.
stops them, nobody- Um, but so then they meet the peaceful ones. But like also Marlon Brando's kind of presented like he is shocking them, but they're also
Right.
monsters.
It's kind of like telling a dog no. Is kind of
But
how it feels like when he's doing that.
yeah, one of his rules on the island is that you can't kill anything.
Right.
And so he's kind of trying to, and like again, that is a setup because he has them all on the shock thing. That is a setup for like, can you repress the nature of an animal or of a beast? But again, no. The answer is never
But it's
even
also
really
like
addressed. Yeah,
you can't even do that in humans. Why would you do it in half man beasts who like eat
Right.
like raw meat to
Yeah.
live? You know,
Right.
it's just the whole thing is
Not
just asinine.
societally
Like,
structured at all.
And so
yeah.
then halfway through, they explain that they give them like a shot to keep their animals from fully taking over. And then Val Kilmer's like, "Oh, also I put like some shrooms and
Oh,
some
I was
meth
wondering.
and some
Yeah,
coke in
yeah.
there just to kind of chill
I
them out
missed
a
when he
little
was
bit."
listing those
I
drugs
was
to him.
like,
That's like the craziest cocktail of all
yeah.
time.
And then Val Kilmer's like, "Yeah." And
That's
so then
amazing.
there's a hyena.
Oh
And
yeah, no, this is because there's a hyena
Mm-hmm.
man who's friends with a leopard man. The leopard man looks pretty cool. He kind of looks like if they had done a live action Thundercats ever.
Totally.
Like
That's what they
he
all look like
actually
for
has a
sure.
pretty cool and he's on trial for like killing a normal rabbit
Yeah.
of some kind.
Right.
He was hungry, and then the trial goes wrong, and one of the sons kills the leopard.
Right.
Well, the trial doesn't go wrong. Marlon Brando goes, "What should we do with him?" And then the son
And the
just
son just
shoots him in the head.
right,
And Marlon Brando's
but
like, "Oh, that's not what I meant." But it's like,
right.
you didn't even say anything
Yeah.
close to that. Like, what the hell's that mean?
But the hyena man also it's funny, the son who's like a goat man or something is Tamura Morrison, Django Fett.
Oh.
So
Oh,
so it's so weird. I would not have known it without like looking at the
Right.
cast. So I was
Right.
like, oh, he was on this. But no, then the hyena man is like, oh, I can't believe you killed my friend the leopard, and he figures out, oh, I should just rip out this like
yeah.
this
Pulled up
buzzer.
the-
Yeah.
But see, this
Yeah.
is my first issue with this: is that at the beginning of the movie, and also it's never brought up again, but the doctors who are performing the surgery on the lady are all
Right.
monsters.
Right. At the beginning, the first time you see him
So
operating. Yeah.
yeah, which gives the implication that the monsters know how to do
That's
surgery.
advanced
So
as hell.
why wouldn't
Yeah.
they take out their own?
Right.
Yeah, like they know where it is. They know how to get it out. Why weren't they doing this from
Yeah.
the beginning? But then again, you also those guys, and I kind of have a feeling that those are from the old draft because they're never talked about again.
Yeah.
They never like go check out that lab.
Right.
It's
Right.
just kind of like
Yeah,
it's left
Yeah.
hanging. But so then that guy takes off his thing, and which again, like he keeps showing people because he shows Val Kilmer, he's like, "No more
Yeah.
pain," and then he runs away. But then, like later, he shows someone else, and it's like, "Are you just keeping that with
Yeah,
you? Like,
dude.
why do you
You're
still
obsessed.
have this?"
Let it go.
out of spite. Yeah,
I'm kind of just like, so they make him into a hyena, and my reasoning behind it is so that he could laugh because he's always like,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
maybe don't make your hyena. I mean, don't make your main villain the most annoying
Right.
sounding character.
you know, it worked in the Lion
Yeah,
King,
the
kind
henchman.
of.
Well, see, that's what I was gonna say. Like, they should have made the main bad guy like a gorilla or a
Yeah.
lion, tiger.
Some sort, or the leopard man who was the coolest creature design.
Yeah,
Yeah, because he basically, it's kind of funny. It's almost like the second Planet of the Apes movie, because he rips out the electronics of all the other hyena men, and then they kind of go on the warpath. They like find weapons and stuff and start slowly like
well, the first thing
doing
they do,
insurgency strikes.
they go see Dr. the doctor.
Yes.
He's like, has
Is
cookies.
this a piano scene?
And yeah, he has like a couple milk, and he's like,
Yeah,
"Hey,
if you wanna
what's up,
chill."
guys? Check this out." And so he starts playing the music, and then he realizes that they're all
Yeah.
bleeding, and he's like, "Oh, hold on, I gotta get something from my room." And so
Yeah.
he goes and gets the little thing, and it doesn't work. But it's like, okay, but you literally just saw that they
Right.
took it out.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know where it is. You're the
Yeah.
person who put it in
Just
there.
keep playing this. They seem to be liking the
Um,
song. Like, just keep on jamming.
Yeah. Well, and then they're like, "Father, why did you do this? Why did you put this chip in us?" And he's like, oh, but it's like, why don't you just tell them? Like you're the one who sees these people as people and
Right.
not as monsters. Why aren't you
Right.
trying to reason with them at all? Because like, and then I also found out that Marlon Brando, because then they eat him,
Hmm.
but Marlon Brando like had decided that he did not want to die and he wanted to be throughout the whole movie, and they told him no. They should have said yes. It's that thing where it's like
We've come this far.
the movie's
Yeah.
called
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
island. You lose him as the main character, and then you kind of don't have
Totally.
anyone
I mean,
else to
he's already kind
do
of
like
inconsequential to the
well,
whole plot, anyways. Like, even though he does die, like he's
yeah.
especially after he dies, he's even more inconsequential. It's so
Yeah,
weird.
It would have been more interesting if they were like if he almost becomes their servant.
Yeah, that could have been cool.
Like that's how much he kind of like Dr. Ford in Westworld, where he's almost like working
Yeah.
with the robots. But yeah, it's such a weird like, why did you get rid of
Yeah.
his character? But then to make up for it, Val Kilmer goes on a complete psycho
Out of nowhere.
Be-
Out of I thought I
becomes
missed like half the
fully
movie when this happened. I was like,
insane.
what did I not see that led to this? And they just don't tell you anything.
Well, and like he's always on the edge. Like Val Kilmer always looks like he's about to like have a
Yeah.
nervous breakdown, but then his nervous breakdown goes from like here
Yeah.
to like
Yeah, it's
here.
a totally different
Right. It
character.
literally it smash cuts to him fully wasted, surrounded by like an animal man
Yeah.
orgy,
Yeah.
and he's just like the king of the orgy.
Going down
and
his
it's just
elevator.
like okay.
And at
And
one
then
point
yeah.
they tell him something, and he's like, "Shit
Right,
happens."
because he's looking for a serum. When you
It-
first see Val Kilmer turn crazy, it's like he's like going to a lab to like find
Yeah.
a serum to make his daughter stop regressing to be an animal woman. And then he gets to the lab and
Yeah.
he's like looking for the medicine, and then all of a sudden you just hear like this weird chanting song coming from the corner of the room, and then Val Kilmer like turns around all scary. And then they like get really close to each other's faces, like Theolis and Val Kilmer's like, "Where did you put the serum?" And he's like, "I don't know. Make me tell you." And it's like, what are you guys about to do? Like, have you guys been waiting for for Moreau to die so you can have this like relationship?
Yeah,
Yeah.
David Thewlis basically, and this is also like because David Thewlis kind of becomes like the action star
Which
guy
is
at this
crazy.
point. He's like, I'm getting
Yeah.
off this island, and it's
Not
kind of
Indiana
like
Jones.
Adrian Brody in
Yeah.
Predators,
Right.
where you're like, I don't buy
Insane.
this.
Yeah.
This just doesn't
Yeah.
this doesn't work for you. But he confronts Val Kilmer, and Val Kilmer goes, "Who's the real animal?" It's like because
They
he's
actually
actually
say
kind
that.
of aggressive. And it's like
Oh,
I wrote it
God.
down because I was like, it's such a like gotcha
Yes.
line. It's
Maybe
like
this is
that's
when the movie actually
don't
pops
got
up.
him.
Like, we just had to get rid of Dad so the
No,
kids
that's
can
what
play.
I was like. Okay, why isn't it this
Right,
crazy
right.
the whole
And that's what
time?
I'm saying. Like, I feel like if we had just stuck with the original members and were able to see them like go crazy and spend more time with them, I think this
Right,
movie would
right.
have been amazing. It's just that we only get glimpses, and so it feels like we're kind of just checking in on the other
Right.
characters' character arcs instead of
Yeah.
following it. Because then the Val Kilmer destroys all that, and then they find out that that serum was the only thing helping the girl like not
Mhm.
be a monster.
Feruza Balk, yeah, she's a cat, and she's like
Right.
becoming more cat-like.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, by the way, Dr. Moreau purposely shot your plane down to bring you here so that because they think your DNA might be the key to saving all the animals. And it's like, Dr. Moreau did not even attempt to bring
Right.
this up.
It's
Also,
a major plot
He
point.
was like, let me kill a plane full of 50 people so one guy
Right,
can maybe
yeah.
get
Yeah.
here.
Good plan.
Which again, like that would have worked really well if it had played into like how kind of like careless his worldview
Like
has
how,
been.
yeah.
But it's
Right,
not
right,
really
right.
like treated as that. It's more treated like isn't that kind of sad that he wanted to help? It's like no, he killed
It's
so many.
crazy.
You know what I think might have like helped this movie just premise wise, and I know this is kind of a weird, and maybe this is too much of a swing from like what it is, but and it was because it's written in the 20s
Right.
where like
Right.
science was basically magic to them.
Yeah.
I almost feel like leaning into like the mysticism because I don't know if you've ever like Conan the Barbarian stuff where he'll just find an island full of like half man beasts or something and be
Yeah.
like, that was weird. You almost want like a mystical element versus them trying to be like, no,
Totally.
it's all
Yeah.
science, because the science is so kind of bad and nonsensical that it almost work better as you're like, oh, this is a
Mhm.
mirror of society thing, if it just happens to be a magic island that like a
Totally.
crazy man
Yeah,
is taking
absolutely.
over. You know what I
100%.
mean?
Yeah, well,
You
I
know,
mean, Josh said he didn't like old, but he's pitching old. Very weird. I mean, that's pretty
it's
strange.
definitely not. Old is also
Right.
science based
As you
and
find
as
out.
dumb as this. So
It's no old is magic. Then science takes over. No, I like the fact that it's run by an evil scientist. I wouldn't want it to be
Yeah.
magical. I think.
I don't
To me,
know.
that's
Like
more
just
interesting.
like they need to go more into the body horror
Like,
science, or make it more like, oh, the island makes you crazy, and then you can do the magic science.
Something.
I don't know. It just
no,
it's
see,
kind of in the middle.
you need that main like to me, and maybe this is why I'm separated from you guys. I think the monsters to me are the least interesting
for
part
sure.
of this movie. To me, the most interesting part is the doctor
Yeah, Val
and
Kilmer is easily
Montgomery.
the most interesting
Like
thing in
they're
this movie.
so
Not even a question.
yeah, because they seem to be having like a weird civil war between each other where Montgomery is clearly like, no, we have to domesticate these monsters by like violence. And Monroe is more like,
Yeah.
no, like let's only use violence when we have to.
Yeah,
And
like we're gonna create
Right.
society
yeah.
here. Yeah.
So everything that's going on in their island to me is like super interesting with the monster just kind of being like fodder. But I mean I'm probably alone in saying like nobody else who watched this movie was like, yeah, I definitely want to care about
I mean,
the
if we knew more
politics
of the history behind it,
the
then that
head
could have been
Right,
warden.
but
interesting. But it's just like we have no idea what's going
Yeah.
on.
but
Ever.
that's what like. But I'm saying. But you know, as soon as like he's in a debate with Marlon Brando, and the only response is judge not, you're like, oh, this won't be like good politics.
Right.
This is just going to be
Yeah.
like dumb shit, you know?
And I wonder like it's that thing where watching this and then watching Apocalypse Now, you have to really appreciate Coppola and Martin Sheen because I wonder if a lot of this was like, you're going up against like more trained classical actors. They're probably not going to be able to improv as well as like Marlon Brando wants them to because he
Yeah.
doesn't want to read the script,
Right.
And then we should add, just in defense of Brando, this movie was made like he had agreed to make this movie, and then his daughter committed suicide like 3 months before,
Oh
so
wow.
they A had to like stop like for a while and take a little thing, and then B they had to oh well, and then they had to like kind of severely cut his scenes down because he wasn't sure how
Yeah.
much he was going to be on it, which makes it even more depressing that he wanted to stay and they
Yeah,
didn't want him
for
to.
real.
But also, he didn't know any of his lines, and he was
Yeah.
not helping them on
He was
set.
not. Yeah, it's funny. We did talk about this, but like halfway through, he's wearing a metal ice bucket hat.
Oh yeah.
That the
Yeah.
guy keeps
He's like,
putting ice
ugh.
cubes into. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, "That's not part of the script." Marlon
Yeah.
Brando did that on set, and of course he did.
Yeah, and his reasoning was that he had turned into a dolphin, and so he needed
Totally,
that
yeah.
bucket to put water
Yeah.
in so that he could breathe, which is A, not how dolphins breathe, and B, they show his bald head at
Right.
multiple other
And
points before this and after this, so he knew that
Yeah.
they were going to
Yeah.
show the
He's
top
got
of
no
his head.
dorsal up there.
to be fair, his real reasoning is he was
Yeah.
bored on
He
set.
found some
and
cups and a thing that fit
liked
his head.
messing around.
And
Put it
sometimes,
on
like,
me.
like Brando famously like found that cat in The Godfather and decided to have him in every scene. And you can really tell if you look at the cat during that scene, and you notice that cat
Right.
is not
It's like
behaving
feral.
Yeah,
whatsoever.
it is not a house pet. Yeah.
It seems like Brando just like to fight. Like, oh, what if I put
Wouldn't
this
that be
here? It's like,
interesting?
sure, whatever.
I guess.
We're 12 weeks behind
Right,
schedule,
right,
Marlon. Whatever
yeah.
you want to do, let's just get it.
There's an IKEA 3 down the road.
But yeah,
Lots of cups.
so then they kill Dr. Monroe. Then like Kilmer's like hosting an orgy, and
Hosting
then
an orgy.
like then the son goes up to him, and he's like, "Hey," and then Val Kilmer's like,
Yeah.
"I love you. I want to go to dog heaven."
Yeah. And then he just shoots him, and I guess he probably does.
And then, see, to me, this is another really weird misstep. So then we find out that you can't, like, the cat lady's gonna completely turn into a cat lady, and so then they like corner him, and the son tells the lady, she's like, Marlon, or the doctor, our father never punished you, and then he kills her. and like her, Val Kilmer, and Dr. Moreau are the main characters of this movie, other than David Thames. And like 20 minutes before the movie ends, they're all dead, and they
Right.
don't like. I mean, they're not coming back, obviously. So you're losing like the whole. It'd be like if you're watching Dune, and then like 20 minutes before it ends, they kill all the characters but Timothy
Okay.
Chalamet, and you're like, oh,
Yeah, chill.
all right,
chill.
I guess we're doing this now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
good to
let's
go.
wrap this up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then like I will say her death scene's pretty
Yeah.
cool because they hang her, but it just felt like so like, oh, we're going this extreme because like nothing
Yeah.
really like you guys were like literally having a huge fit over killing a rabbit
Yeah.
like 3 days ago,
Just-
and now you killed your dad.
you know how to
and
hang
then
someone.
The son comes to like, yeah, the son goes to the hyena and he's like,
Yeah.
I killed them all for you. And then the hyena shoots him and he's like, thanks, buddy. And I was like, oh, so now the hyena is just like
right,
a
just mean guy.
80s action villain
Cool.
type. And so then they're gonna kill the David Thames, and he's like, oh, are you a god? And he's like, I am a god. And he's like, okay, well, who's the second god? And he's like, what? He's like, well, there's got to be someone second in command. And then the hyena's like, oh yeah. And then so he starts killing his own men, and they start killing him back. And I was like,
What is? Yeah,
hyenas? What?
I didn't know what was going on.
It was a
Yeah.
very, it was again a very like, let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
You get it. The movie's over. Yeah.
And before, like they were clearly like kind of revering the Doctor as a god, but they never like explicitly said it. So then for the hyena to want to be a god,
Right.
it's like, where did this come from? Like, what are you talking about? You know? And like, I don't know. It would have made more sense if it was a lion again, because a lion has a pack. I
Yeah.
think hyenas have packs too.
Yeah,
They don't have
it feels very like, you know, the movie in its first draft
Right.
was a social commentary, and this is
Right.
left from that, but like
Totally.
you changed.
It looks
too
like, I
much
mean,
to-
you
yeah.
want to know about Richard Stanley. I mean, I guess
'Cause
it goes like to the extreme, and like I've only ever seen Color Out of Space, yeah, which it was pretty wild.
Yeah.
Like the movie goes there, and so like you can like just like the way that the creatures look and like how out there everything is. Like it does seem like this was going to be made by somebody who was going to like take it to the next level, but it was given to someone who just like
Yeah.
doesn't do that kind of thing, so it just feels like, you know, shrunk. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
A little rote, yeah.
I will
'cause-
say, I'm glad that William said that, because if you've seen Color Out of Space,
Yeah.
it's the one with Nicolas Cage. It's about like a family on a farm. They find like some weird goo. It's written by H.P. Lovecraft. But I will say, if you watch that movie, Richard Stanley has no control over Nicolas Cage in that movie, because Nicolas Cage has like 4 accents, and he keeps switching back and forth between them. So I am curious as to how he
Brando.
would have been able to control Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer.
yeah, I mean that is a good movie though.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and that's a good movie. I would say check it out. But it's that thing where it's like Nicolas Cage is famously a director's actor. Like he loves to help directors and kind of like build with them. That's why a lot of his movies are kind of
Yeah.
they're unique to Cage. But
No.
Marlon Brando is not.
He's an icon.
yeah,
Yeah.
he is hostile to the
Right.
idea
He's a
of the
blowhole
director.
in the
Yeah.
scene. Yeah. But so then, just to kind of wrap it up, so then they fight, they do all the bad guy stuff. I mean, the real spoilers
Yeah.
is that all the cool characters are dead, so who cares? And so then they're like, "Hey, we blew up the dock earlier." They blew up the dock earlier,
All good.
and they're like, "But it's back now."
We made a
"All right,
raft for
David,
you,
we'll
so you
see
can just
later."
float the ocean
Yeah,
on your
and-
raft. It's so safe.
And then my favorite part of the whole movie is David Thames is like, he's talking to Ron Perlman. He's like, "Hey, maybe we can take you back to to the mainland, and then doctors can experiment
It's gonna be
on
awesome,
you
dude.
and
It's
like
gonna be
do a bunch
sick.
of terrible
Yeah.
tests.
You're gonna have a good life.
See if they
Yeah.
can fix you." And Ron Perlman's like, I was like, "Nah, it sounds
Yeah.
that sounds
My
like
friends
the
are
worst
here."
idea I've ever heard."
Yeah, he's like, oh no, I'm just gonna be an animal
Yeah.
again. That's probably for the best. I don't
He's
want
like,
to.
When have the English ever turned their
Right,
back
yeah.
on someone they colonized?
No, but then like because there actually is like a little bit of narration, really just at the beginning and end. But it's like David Lewis like leaving and being like, "Oh, I wonder if I'll ever be able to live comfortably with humans
Right.
again." I'm like, is
Because
that
everyone's
the
doing
lesson
this.
of this
Everyone's got this
movie?
in the back of their mind.
That's my favorite.
Right.
his ending monologue is like Hannibal Holocaust level of like dumb, because he starts it off and he's like, and after I got back home, this island was put at the back of my mind, and I would only ever think about it every once in a while. And I was like, I'm not gonna lie, if I went to Monster Island,
Constantly.
I'd probably think
Nightmares.
about it almost every
Yeah.
day. Like I'd be like eating lunch, and I'd be like, this is way
Yeah.
better food than I
That
had on
thing
that
that
Monster
changed
Island.
and ruined my life, kind of.
Yeah,
and then, and then
it's
it's
not
like,
great.
this is how humans can be if we let it go too far.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're already kind of
We
like,
did evolve.
what are you talking?
What's funny? I assume neither of you guys watched the
No.
'77 version
Is it
starring
good?
Michael York.
Oh.
I did watch it yesterday. No, it's also bad. It's bad in a different way though. But the big difference with that movie is the doctor does start changing the main guy into an animal as well. But like that guy's humanity, it's Michael York, and he's actually pretty good in it. He's kind of the driving force of it. He works a lot better than David Thewlis. The whole thing is like, no, if we retain our humanity, like, because he keeps trying to make him a beast, and he's like, no, I remember my name, I remember myself. And this movie kind of ends that way, where he's like, no, I've persevered, but it's like, you were never really an animal.
Yeah.
You were just kind of watching things happen. You know, it's like, so it like took the victory of that movie,
Right.
it just kind of gave it to him,
Just be like,
just
"Here's-
kind of arbitrarily at the end of
Congrats."
this movie. It's like you really do see like 7
Yeah,
different
100%.
scripts in this movie, and also like
Right.
the actors
No one
not
knows the movie
sticking
they're
to
in
it,
at all.
you know.
Right,
So,
right, and just kind of like,
yeah.
everyone's just kind of making up, like they're making it all up as they go along, but
Yeah.
nobody's like working together.
Yes.
Like, hey, this would be good. I will say, there's 2 things that you can watch. I would watch Island of Lost Souls. It's the like 1940s original adaptation of Dr. Monroe. It's pretty good. I mean, if you like older films. If you don't
Yeah.
like older films, it's hard to get through. And then the other thing is, there was a movie called Lost Soul, which is about the making of it, but it mainly just kind of interviews Richard Stanley, and he kind of talks a little bit about what he wanted the movie to be. Then he talks a lot about
That
how
sounds pretty
troubled the production was. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Probably
It's
better than the movie. Yeah.
probably more interesting than the movie. But yeah, check those out. Especially like check that out and then check out this movie, just to see like, oh, this, like, they were having so many problems. One of the things they talk about is that first scene with on the boat, and they're like, someone was like, hey, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And Richard
It's
Stanley
all
was
good.
like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
According to they did not. And then my favorite part is that they interview the guy that the little man stole his job, and
Oh,
he's like
man.
still.
You can't be
kinda
mad at that
bitter
guy
about
though.
it.
It wasn't his fault.
He's like, "How do you lose? How did I
You
lose to
lost
the
to
smallest
Brando.
mountain
That's
in
who
the
you lost
world?"
to.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It's also
I
like,
know.
why do
Like,
you
did
want
you
to
see
be
it?
in this movie so bad?
Like
It's so
you were saved, my man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall, here's the thing. Like, even if this movie was released today, it would still be as weird. Like, there's no like, oh, back in the day it was
Yeah.
weird, now
This
it's
movie's
normal. It's
wild.
like, no,
Yeah.
this would have been kind of a mess whenever it was revealed. I would check it out. I would see like what happens when you get
Yeah.
great actors, but you don't get a script.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, just to kind of watch like in real time, like, oh, every scene in this
Right.
is falling apart in a different way. Yeah, it's
I mean,
it's
I
very
wasn't.
interesting.
Yeah,
It's very
I wasn't bored.
Hearts
I
of
never like
Darkness
wanted to turn it
almost,
off.
you know?
Even though I had no idea what was going on, I was like, "What?"
Yeah, you're more confused because you're like,
Yeah, that's how I felt the whole
did
time.
I miss a scene?
Right.
Like, no, just those scenes are
Yeah.
missing. Those scenes are not in the movie.
For me, like when I was watching it at the beginning, I was like, oh, okay, I can see how we can defend this. But then it just keeps going, and then they
Yeah.
lose all the characters I cared about, and it becomes harder to care when like it's like, I don't care if the UN guy
Right.
gets off of the island. Why would I
Yeah.
care about that?
I don't know
Like,
why
I
you
don't
think
even
of
know
UN.
this guy.
I also I do think
Yeah.
the premise is flawed. Like you said, if it had leaned more into the psychological, like sciencey aspects,
Yeah.
I could see it being good. I could see if it was more mystical and almost like weird in the way of that Natalie Portman movie where they're in the woods and weird
Which one?
stuff just keeps happening to them. Oscar
Yeah.
Isaacs is
Attack
in
of
it.
the Clones.
What are you
No,
talking
not
about?
Attack of the Clones.
Natalie Portman and Oscar Isaac? Yeah.
Oh, Revenge of the Sith.
Not Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, that movie's amazing.
Annihilation. Yeah, if it was more like unexplainable
Oh, I see what you
craziness like
mean.
Annihilation, but
Mm.
it's just kind of like it's like
Yeah.
a shot for TV movie about the weirdest thing
Yeah.
ever, but playing all of it down, you know.
And to all our fans, describing Annihilation as two guys or a bunch of weird stuff in the woods is not what Annihilation
Like that's exactly what it is, but it's
That
like
is
so.
exactly what Annihilation.
What?
It's gonna be like
You
what's
guys-
that movie? What's that movie about building a spaceship? A Star Trek 29
Dude.
or 2009. Like I mean, it's
Okay.
in there.
90% of that movie is
That's
weird
exactly
things
what it
happening
is.
to Natalie
I
Portman in
think
the
they're in
woods.
the Everglades, but it looks like
Yeah,
woods.
I mean, it's supposed to be, that should have been a game of like Josh is gonna describe a movie.
I
in the
honestly had
vaguest
no
way
idea what you. I was
possible.
like, wait, I have to find out what this
But
movie
yeah.
is. Like, this is the best setup of all. Oh yeah, the masterpiece known as Annihilation.
It took me a second.
Yeah,
We'll cover that one eventually. Don't worry,
We love
Garland.
you.
We're coming to save you again, like we did with Men, the movie
I
everyone
won't.
now loves.
I won't save you from
I
Men
will.
or Civil
Um,
War.
I'm a fanboy.
Oh yeah, but yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's kind of cool to see like the monster makeup and the effects. And then I like there's a scene near the end where he's like super scared, the main guy, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
nothing bad has happened to
why
you
are
at
you
all.
scared?
You're fine.
I mean, objectively, this is
Sure.
the most terrifying thing ever. It's just
Right. Yeah.
shot so sedately, you know.
It's that thing where like almost it's shot so boringly. Like you could have done like where the like there's that scene where when Val Kilmer's like, "Come on, hyena," like they could have just had close-ups of him in the woods, like you just
Right.
see him watching Val Kilmer, and then you realize like, oh, he's hunting
Totally.
him, you know, or something. Like
Yeah, they just
none of
walk
the animals
around.
ever hunt anyone in this movie.
Yeah.
They just get machine guns
Yeah,
and they
it's not a
start
big
shooting
deal.
people. It's like, well, yeah, I've seen that. I can imagine that. But yeah, check it out. Check out Lost Souls. Definitely check out
Yeah.
The Island of Lost Souls. I think that's why the documentary is called that. And tell us what you think. But yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
joining us. Check out some Gene Hackman films. R.I.P. to a legend. And we'll see you guys next week. Next week you'll watch Inherent Vice, and then we'll go back to a
My
newer
God.
episode. So we don't know what's coming in 2 weeks, but join
the
us
Bomb
and
Squad.
find out.